Hi everybody. I'll read from a brief statement. Thank you for coming. I'll read from a brief statement, then open to questions for Simon and myself. This has been a very tough few weeks, and the decision to part ways with Brett Ratten has been a very painful one for the club and, of course, incredibly disappointing for Brett and his family. At the end of the day, our duty to members in the pursuit of success requires us to make the best decision for the club and for the members, and not the individual. As you know, we began a full review of our football program in July. I led this review using external expertise and with the support of a number of board members and our CEO. I want to be very clear, we had no predetermined outcome when we started this review. I will report back to members in the coming days with key components to that review, but in summary, we've made big improvements across all areas of the club, but there is a big gap between where we are now and where we want to be. We don't yet have the winning culture or ruthless commitment to football excellence that we need. The review has already delivered a new GM of football in Jeff Walsh, and it became clear that we needed to have a new senior coach with a new style of leadership and a new voice. I want to address the issue of the contract extension mid-season. We gave Brett assurance at the start of 2022 that we would give him clarity mid-year. At the time, the team was winning games and in contention, and we wanted to give Brett all the support he needed to give him the best chance of success and to show that he could be our long-term coach. If we, as a club, have regrets about that in hindsight, we cannot let those regrets get in the way of making the right decision for the future. I want to say a few things about Brett Ratten. He's given his heart and soul to the club, and this has been an incredibly hard decision for us. He's loved and respected, not only by many in St Kilda, but across the industry. He's shown immense care and passion for our staff and players. I want to thank him for everything he and his family have given to this club. It is with a very, very heavy heart that we've made this decision. Brett has handled himself this week in incredibly difficult circumstances, with dignity and class, as you would expect from the person that he is. As to what's next, we have a very clear view about what we need, and I want the members to know that we'll get the right coach for this club. I know a lot of you have questions, but we are not going to address too much about our next steps today. I will say that we will act quickly and decisively. I hope to give you an update on this issue in coming weeks. Thank you.
Andrew, Simon, have you spoken to Ross Lyon?
No, we haven't. I just discussed them. We're not going to talk about the next steps. Today's about showing the respect to Brett, which has been a really tough decision for the club. We've made no decisions about our next coach. We'll take the next steps now across the hopefully days and weeks to find the right coach for this club.
So what's changed since July?
Yeah, look, a fair bit's changed. I mean, obviously, the second half of the season was very different, and probably in particular, fair to say the review gave me the opportunity to get much closer, particularly to the processes that are underpinning the results. So what we could see in July was results on field, firstly. Those results got worse. And secondly, some of the processes, some of the issues around our program that we feel we need to take us forward, the size of the gap that we feel we have between where we are and where some of the better clubs are, felt pretty big, and we felt we needed a new style of leadership and a new voice to close that gap.
Simon, just on that, what were the specifics of the review that led you to part company with Brett Ratten? Why was the feedback so different as part of the review compared, for example, to Andrew's comments when you reappointed him around July?
Yeah, well, Andrew touched before. We'll release some findings from the review in the coming days. We've already made some decisions on the back of those in relation to senior leadership for football. Look, it was a really forensic review led by Andrew that dug into every corner of the club and the football program. End of the day, Tom, we find ourselves mid-table, and to pursue where we need to get to win a flag, which this club desires and its fans deserve, means taking the next step in what we need by way of the attitude, the performance, the non-negotiables, the strong leadership we need, and the buy-in from the playing group. And all of that requires us to head in a new direction, and that's really hard on people, but a combination of lots of different feedback and performance and things we've known about where we need to get to have brought us to a really tough decision.
Did Brett, who obviously we've all got enormous respect for, in effect lose the confidence of some of the players? Was that some of the feedback as part of the review?
I don't think it'd be fair to say Brett's lost the players. I know it's a term industry likes to lose. Brett's got great respect from our playing group. We spoke to our players this morning who I would say are saddened by the decision because they're so close and love and respect Brett. But they understand that they need to dig a bit deeper now. They need to turn their minds to how they can get better. And we're going to provide a football program that asks more of them. But no, they're still close to Brett, and they'll be processing this now in their own way.
So will Brett still be here in the finals?
We can only deal with what happened. At mid-year, we were travelling pretty well. It was the right thing at the time for us to support and provide the certainty for Brett and the playing group to pursue the rest of the season with some certainty. If you crystal ball that now, maybe in hindsight that's the wrong decision, but the wrong decision now would be to keep going forward if we thought we needed to do better. We didn't make finals, so we are where we are, and this is all about making a really tough decision to give ourselves the best chance that going forward.
Jeff Walsh made some pointed comments the day he was appointed to this club. Did he have any involvement in this decision?
No, Jeff had no involvement. Jeff was an output of the review. Absolutely. Jeff doesn't start until November 1. Jeff had no involvement in this decision.
I think you all know Jeff.
Who will have involvement in the next step. Sorry, something.
You all know Jeff well enough. He's got strong views about everything in football. He spoke from his own mindset and his own heart on resource in Kilda. He hasn't begun yet. He starts 1 November. We're looking forward to engaging him.
Andrew, what was the timing of the communication to Brett? Did he know this was coming? Can you just talk us through the circumstances last night?
No, look, Brett and I, Simon had a bit of a conversation with Brett on Sunday night as we got to a decision that was really subject to Brett being given a genuine opportunity to convince us that we were getting something wrong. Brett and Simon and I had a meeting on Monday, and over the course of the week I spent, I think, about 7 hours with Brett going over all the detail and giving him every opportunity he could with a genuine open mind to tell us that we got something wrong in terms of the decision that really came down to feeling that for this football club to have a genuine chance for contending going forward, we need a different style of leadership and a different voice. And at the end of the day, I was reminded by what a wonderful person Brett is, what a decent, terrific human being he is, and his strengths. But I think was able to convince the board and the working committee that this was the wrong decision. We've got pretty hard conviction in what we need as a football club to close the gap that we see, considerable gap that we see, and we're committed to our members to do everything we can to close that gap, as harsh as this decision was.
Andrew, will there be any other changes to the football program?
Look, the review's about to be wrapped up effectively, and we'll communicate in the coming days to the members the high-level findings of that review. So the major changes really have been obviously the appointment of Jeff Walsh, which reversed the original decision around what we're going to do about head of football. And David Ratten and James Gallagher have been terrific about accepting that decision and embracing the opportunity to work with Jeff and learn from him. And obviously the change of coach, and we'll present the findings shortly.
There's been some change on the way. I mean, Lenny Hayes hasn't commenced yet. He'll be our midfield coach. We've got a vacancy in our forwards coach, which will now go and work in concert with a new coach once we get one to fill that spot. So there's still some changes to be made, but nothing that the recommendations of the review is going to dictate.
So if you got new members, are you going to run a process for the new coach? Or something?
Look, we touched on the fact that we're not here to discuss those steps. This is to discuss this decision. But what I would say is, between Andrew, myself and the board, we've uncovered what we need, and our members need to know we'll be swift and decisive and go and find the coach we need.
It sounds like you know who your man is. Is that fair?
No, that's not fair to say that we know exactly who our man. We know what we want to get, we know the characteristics we're after, and we're going to go to the market and find it.
What are those characteristics?
Well, I just touched on the fact we're not going to discuss. I know you'll want to hear exactly what we're after.
Needing a different style of leadership and different voice. What is that style of leadership?
Yeah, I think we'll leave the detail of that. It'll be pretty clear when we release the findings of the review. We'll also talk more about next steps. So we've decided not to go into that today, but that'll come out in coming days.
Simon, you missed out on Jordan Gully trade period, and even James Gallagher at the deadline admitted that the list probably isn't where it needs to be. What makes you think a different coach can do any better than what Bassat have done this year?
We think there's a fair bit of upside in the performance of our list, to be fair. We've had, 2 seasons now where you've seen the end of 2021 with some strong performance and the start of this year with some performance. We've beaten some of the top sides. We lack consistency. We lack our best players playing at their top end all the time. And we've got, I think you would have seen from the 2021 draft pick, we've got 3 or 4 young players coming through making an impact. So we see the trajectory of this group. We don't shy away from the fact we've got to add to that group. We'll go to the draft in a month's time with a full hand of 3 picks inside 32 and look to find that young talent again. But we've got some work to do. We've acknowledged that.
Do you think the list management calls over the last 3 or 4 years have put you in this spot where you are mid-table?
Oh, there's no doubt list management decisions affect your performance. What I would say is we've come from a long way back in lots of parts of our program. We made significant change to our list since 2018, including utilising the trade period in 2019 and 20 to add and make our list competitive. As you've seen, we've just won 11 games this season. We are not bottom of the table. We acknowledged last year that we can't just keep going to trade. We need to invest in our youth. You would have seen Owens, Windhager, Wangan play this year and show the benefits of going to the draft. We're going to do so again, and we're going to keep targeting free agents and out-of-contract players as we go. But you can't necessarily do both at once. But we've certainly got our list to a really competitive spot.
If you had signed Jordan De Goey, would Brett Ratten still be coach?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. I think, and I like to think that even if we'd made finals, I went into this with no predetermined views, as I said, and it was very much saying that the sorts of questions I was asking, to be frank, is are we genuinely on the path to contending, or are we kidding ourselves? Are we at serious risk of getting stuck into the 6 to 10 zone? All sorts of questions related to that, and the answers I got were troubling in terms of our confidence to come up with a plan with conviction. To be entirely clear. The nature of the head coaching role is a lot of focus on, and there's a lot more scrutiny on that than anything else. There are a bunch of other things we need to get better in our program for us to be successful. This isn't all about our coaching program and all about Brett. And if we don't fix those things, the new coach will also struggle to be successful. So we're really mindful of that, and we're going to fix all areas of the organisation. But we really felt that to maximise the chance of success, we needed a different style of leadership.
So just to be clear, if you'd signed Jordan De Goey, a week later, the coach who would have been a key part of that pitch would have been sacked still.
We didn't sign Jordan De Goey, so there's not much point talking about hypotheticals didn't occur. This review's been going since July and has made a number of decisions about a number of staffs and areas. It's really irrelevant to talk about Jordan De Goey, who's a Collingwood player.
Was it a deliberate decision not to make this decision not until after the trade period?
No, it wasn't at all. This process has taken a long time. It's created a lot of uncertainty in our football program, which is unfortunate but necessary. It took as long as it needed to take to A, find out what we thought we needed, and B, give those involved the opportunity to respond, to listen to the findings, to give their view on how they can try and improve themselves in the program. And that played out right until last night, followed by a board meeting. So is the timing ideal? Maybe not, but we weren't going to rush it in order to fit timings of other parts of the industry.
How long have you had that external review recommendation about the coach?
That recommendation was discussed all week, as Andrew said, between myself, Andrew and Brett from Sunday through until last night, because Brett deserved the chance to hear our views and Brett deserved the chance to respond and put his case forward, which he did very well, and the board agonised over the decision last night.
So just on the timing, it's obviously well documented, GWS, Essendon and North have all gone to markets. Some would say the field's thin. Is this a bit chaotic in terms of the timing and what the options that now present to you?
There's no doubt other clubs have made decisions in their own time. We have taken the course to find out what we need to structure our football program the way it needs to be, and we'll now make decisions based on what is available. We can't worry about what's not. We'll go to market, find what this club needs, and we'll do it swiftly.
How damaging is this for the soft cap in terms of the payout for Brett?
It's not fair to talk about the arrangements with Brett, other than to say that, as you all well know, I think there are appropriate protections in contracts these days for all football staff that protects the club and also is fair to the staff member. Soft caps are always fully spent and always difficult, and we'll manage it just like every other club does.
Andrew, why should City fans have faith that the leadership of this club is the right leadership when you made such a poor decision and you've admitted that 3 months ago? Why should they have faith that the leaders are the right people in place?
Yeah, look, there's a few things to say about that. I assume you talk about the decision to re-sign the coach, or not the decision now. I think, firstly, you're talking in hindsight, and I think at the time it was less criticised, and as we started to lose games, people started to criticise the decision more and more. And I think as part of that decision as well, we really agonised over that decision, and personally agonised over the decision in debates. And I think the clinching argument to this extent, the recommendation was to re-sign the coach, was around we want to give him every chance to be the best, to show he can be our long-term coach, give our side every chance we could to make the finals. And if we ended up at the end of the year making a different decision, we'll cop the payout. And I think that was a humane decision rather than necessarily a terrible decision. Secondly, even if it was a mistake, to be frank, how I judge people, I've made more mistakes than anyone in this room. Even if it was a mistake, you evaluate people on how you deal with them, not necessarily on the making them. If you're doing something ambitious, you will make mistakes. If you're trying to do something hard, and how you deal with them is important. And what we've done is we've acknowledged that we've done something wrong. We'd far prefer get it right for the long-term health of this football club and take any criticism that comes with it, rather than just doubling down on the decision and ploughing ahead because we don't want to look silly.
Simon, did you commit to Brett too early? There was clearly a period from when you committed to him and then he signed the contract. Did you commit to him too early given the start of the start of the season?
Look, again, hindsight's wonderful in this, and if you crystal ball it, I guess the answer to your question is yes. You know, being in the club and understanding that at the start of the year we could have decided to make a decision then, but we worked with Brett on assuring him we'd do it mid-year. And to be fair, the performance of the club was pretty strong at the mid-year, and he deserved the chance to prove he could be the long-term coach of the club and to be given that certainty at that time. It also gave our players the certainty for the remainder of the year to go ahead and try and make finals. I understand and acknowledge now it didn't occur. We also acknowledge that because it didn't occur, we went and did our work on what this club needs, and that means a change. That's harsh on Brett, but it's the right thing for the club. We can't look back on that, and as Andrew just said, we will take responsibility for the fact we've had to make a decision not long after an original one, but we do so for the best interest of the club.
Was Brett given the best opportunity to have success at this footy club? Was he given every chance to have success?
Look, this is the hard thing. I'm going to be frank. Given there's a bunch of things that we need to do better in our program, you know, we can't look back and say that Brett was absolutely set up for success. I can't say that with honesty. I need to adjust for that and take that into account. That makes this decision even harsher. But we still felt, taking that into account, that even with a better setup around him, we felt there were coaches potentially with different characteristics that gave us a far greater chance of being successful, and and as well as different voices. That's a harsh decision to make, and it's one that involves all sorts of speculation. But you know, I won't pretend that Brett was given every opportunity to be the best coach he could be. But the alternative was to go ahead with our strong doubts, fail next year and lose the season. We felt that risk was too great, as harsh as that decision is.
Obviously, Brett's not in the press conference, so I understand why. He might have released a statement, but how did he receive the news last night?
Brett, as you well know, received it with the dignity and class you'd expect him to. He was very disappointed. He wants to coach the club, and that opportunity's been taken away from him in a decision that is designed to get this club out of the middle of the road and get us to the top of the table, and we think we need a change to do so. But he received it, Tom, in the manner you'd expect of a guy who is a compassionate, passionate guy who deserved respect, and we did our best to have that conversation in that manner.
The one thing I'll add is, look, you know, it's disappointed. He's, you know, the degree of anger, though, couldn't have handled himself better. He talked about whether they're given a big chance, and so, you know, I think just out of empathy to Brett, I need to add it's a really, really tough blow for him. He handled himself as well as anyone possibly could. But he's disappointed and feels we made the wrong decision. We want to know that.
Did Brett make that point to you when you gave him the chance to plead his case? Did he make the point to you that he didn't feel like he was set up for success?
Yeah, as I said, Brett and I had 7 hours together, and I want, to be frank, the review would have finished a month ago if I wasn't trying to get to a different answer in terms of the way forward. But I also promised the members that I would come to them with conviction that we had a plan to take us forward, that I was confident would lead this club to success. And I didn't see that we could do that with Brett as the coach. Yeah, we went through everything. He was honest. He made some really strong points. But at the end of the day, we felt the logic that led us to this decision wasn't challenged sufficiently to change this decision.
So the players last time in terms of delivering that ruthless edge, like, how do you deliver the ruthless edge? You're a lot of clubs, that's what we want. What does it actually mean?
Brett's got a ruthless edge. You saw that as a player, and I've seen it here as a coach. The reality is we're mid-table and we need to make change, in our view, to take the next step. That requires new leadership in the senior coach role. Brett's got significant strengths. Every coach you take on will bring significant strengths and weaknesses that require support. Whoever takes this role will have weaknesses we've got to work on. But this is not about the weaknesses of Brett in that position, because Brett's a ruthless guy who got the best out of his football career and has been a successful coach along the way as well.
Simon, it's 8 weeks since your last game. The players should be cherry ripe to come back for pre-season. What's the latest date you want a coaching position by? Because Saints fans will be crying out and thinking this group should be almost starting now to get going in 23.
Yeah, as you know, the break for players is significant now. They're not back till 22 November. That being said, all players have programs they work on in the off-season, and they're doing that right now. As we said, we'll be swift and decisive. That means, weeks, not months. We'll be well established, organised and in good shape to take on pre-season in the weeks ahead.
When do you expect to play finals and then ultimately contend for a premiership?
Yeah. Well, look, I won't go too much into the review. I don't want to go down that path now. We've got ourselves in trouble. The reality is we think our list is capable of more than we've shown. Simon talked about some of the inconsistency. At best, we're a pretty good team. At the same time, to be frank, we feel this football club needs to perhaps have a stronger crack at getting the foundations right. The desperation of our members for success can sometimes lead you down the path of impatience, can sometimes lead you down the path of focusing on outputs, which is winning games, rather than the process that leads to winning games. We want the new coach to be set up to build the foundations right, to get the process right. And if that takes us backwards before it takes us forwards, we hope it does not, but if it does, we'll cop it and we'll maintain the courage of our convictions.
When you spent 7 hours with Brett this week, was he blindsided? Did you have any inkling that this might be an outcome of the review?
No, look, I think Brett was pretty blindsided. I think this review did create uncertainty, and I'm sorry. And it was, the question before. I think it's been a brutal process, and I've spared nothing or no one. And Simon's been terrific in dealing with the challenge and working with me together to get the right outcome. And so we didn't know where it would go, but there was uncertainty. But I don't think Brett had any inkling that he was specifically in his sights. And I think, to be frank, and in his in sympathy to him, the fact that we'd signed up to a contract not too long before probably made that harder for him to see coming.
Andrew, have you spoken to any potential coaching candidates?
No, look, we really I think we've got a very clear view, as Simon said, of where we want to go. We didn't think, given we had not made our mind up, genuinely hadn't finalised the decision until 6 o'clock or something last night. The idea of trying to sign a contract with anyone else just didn't seem appropriate for anyone. So I think we've got a very clear view of the sort of characteristics, as Simon said, where after this press conference we'll start going down that path.
And Saints fans will want to know, have you had dialogue with anyone to coach this club for next year?
Have we? So I think I've answered that.
To answer the question, no, we have not. We were not going to have dialogue with anyone until there's a vacancy. There's vacancy now.
What's your policy, Simon, in regards to James Hurd? Obviously, there's split opinion as to whether he would be a great coach or not, and obviously came up with the Essendon discussion. Do you look at James Hurd?
I'm not here to talk about the next steps, as we said, Tom. James Hurd has been a separate process. We haven't begun ours. We're not talking about those steps right now.
Simon, you're the immediate past of the target boss.
Yep.
You were in charge of the department when this all went down. does any of this sit on your shoulders as to what's happened to Brett Ratten? What sort of, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, the responsibility of this decision sits with me. There's no doubt. Andrew and I have complete conviction about the decision, though. I discussed this with Brett during the week. I think Andrew's made it clear that our view is that this program and this team has come a long way in the last few years to get itself to a competitive position, but that's where we are. To be significantly competitive at the top end, we need to make some change. I own the responsibility of making that decision to make change to get better. The reality of this industry is there's heavy scrutiny on decision making. We're well aware of that. I'll own this decision going forward, and we'll look to be making this club where it needs to be to give us a chance to win.
Did you go and see Brett last night after the board meeting, or have you had much contact?
Yeah, I couldn't be clearer insofar as how much contact we've had with Brett this week since we told him at the start of the week that we are making a decision on his tenure. We've been in constant contact in here, at Andrew's house and otherwise, and Brett remained at the club last night until the board meeting was finished and we spoke to him face to face. Brett is the sort of person that would put the club second and make sure he's available for all that. It's exactly what he did. I hope he's off fishing right now with people he loves and trusts, and that's where he deserves to be, with those that he trusts going forward.
So just to be clear there, Simon, he waited last night for Brett, pending the outcome of the board meeting, essentially waiting his fate from the coaching perspective.
Yeah, as you'd expect he would, Tom. It's a significant decision, and we weren't going to do it over the phone to him. And he knew that the decision was going to be discussed and debated heavily. So he absolutely waited. He had things to do during the day, and he came back. That's not unusual.
It's been pretty transparent with Brett, as hard as it's been. We owed Brett a lot, but we certainly owed him honesty. So we've given him complete honesty through the course of the week that we felt the decision was likely to go against him, but we wanted to give him every chance to convince us we were wrong, and he's handled that better than anyone I can imagine.
Why should the next coach trust that he's not going to receive the same fate?
So I admit that.
Why should the next coach have faith that he's not going to receive the same fate?
Yeah, look, it's not. Yeah, it's a very fair question. I can't. We need to analyse a bunch of things we have done, including how we've communicated with Brett on the way through, and to the extent there were concerns that haven't been addressed over the course of the year, for example, that led us to making conclusions can be difficult for him to progress in certain areas. We could have communicated them better even at the time of resigning. There's a bunch of things we might have done differently. But at the end of the day, I think our hope is that we'll set up a program, we'll set up a communication process and set up trust that gives confidence the next person will be supported and get the right outcome for our football club.
Might just end it there, sorry.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ed.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Thanks. Cheers.